having a hard time figuring out what type of educational content to put out today, so I think I'm just going to do a story time. A couple weeks back, I put out a poll asking if you guys would be interested in hearing like spiritual premonition-ish type of stuff, and you said yes. So I think I'll tell you the story about my end of the world dream that I had in February of 2023. So for those who don't know, I had our second baby in June of 2022. And my postpartum journey was really, really tough with my firstborn. I had like pretty severe PPD, postpartum depression, more so postpartum anxiety, I think. But yeah, it just like motherhood totally took me by, I was totally prepared for it. I had seen so many friends and family go through it, so I thought that I was like in the know for what to expect. Totally knocks you on your ass your first time around. So wasn't expecting that, but I think I had an appropriate reaction to learning all of the new things that I was learning. Second time around, I knew what to expect, definitely helped. I knew that I am just kind of like predisposed to PPD, PPA. It was somehow significantly worse the second time around. I have never experienced that level of anxiety in my life, and I have always been an anxious person. I was always an anxious kid. I was always an anxious adult, in and out of therapy. And I think I thought I had a pretty good handle on it. And then second time postpartum really just killed whatever work and progress I had made. I found myself getting really, really anxious about all of the dangers of what it means to live here in occupied land, now known as the United States. I think actually I would consider it less anxious and more like hyper aware of the dangers of living here. And so like every day I was afraid to leave my house because I was afraid of becoming a victim of gun violence, or somebody that I love becoming a victim of gun violence. I was afraid to bring my oldest to school. I think because I had already been on some journey of decolonization and feeling some attachment to Palestine and wanting to go back there, that this started feeling less and less like home. And so I was just afraid of everything. I was anxious about everything, and I felt like I was living in a matrix. And I know that sounds crazy, but I felt like there was another world, like a parallel world, where there was another Janan who was living with her family happily, probably in Palestine, because I feel like that's the only place that's really home. But she was living in a world that she wasn't afraid of all the things that Americans are afraid of living here. And I think just my background in psychology and my knowledge of what postpartum anxiety and depression looked like for me the first time around, I was having really dark moments, but I was able to pull myself out of them. But it got to a point where whatever intrusive thoughts I was having, I was able to immediately nip them in the bud mentally, and tell myself, like, this is not your brain, this is postpartum brain, let that feeling go, let that thought go. But I found that I was having to pull myself out of these dark moments and thoughts too often. So contacted my therapist, who had helped me through everything that, all the anxieties that COVID brought on. And in between waiting, calling her and waiting for my next scheduled appointment, I had a dream. Prefacing this with the women in my family, in my maternal lineage, have premonition dreams. They are not always exactly how they are presented. in the dream, like things don't play out in real life exactly how they play out in a dream, but they're always connected to something that's happening or will happen in our real life. We have a very long lineage of Sufis in our families. If you don't know what Sufis are, it's the mystical sect of Islam. It's ancient, but it relies a lot on like ancestral knowledge. It's very much, in tune with the earth, the universe. And so over the years, I found myself really like just identifying a lot with that maternal lineage of mine. So every once in a while, I will have a dream. And something about that dream, whether it's, checking in with somebody who I hadn't thought about in a really long time, or seen in a really long time, and just like I get a dream about them that I need to check in. It's happened a couple of times, and that person just always happened to need that check-in. I'll get into all the other weird things that have been happening with me, like spiritually, especially since October. Things I'm experiencing, smelling, feeling, all that stuff. But for now, I want to talk about this one dream that I had. So I had this one dream in February that will stay with me for the rest of my life. I was driving through what seemed to be like a desert road during what seemed to be golden hour. For some reason in the dream, I was like, oh, I'm in Arizona. So I'm driving through Arizona. It's just me solo in the car. And all of a sudden, everything goes gray. And it was like the world just experienced a power outage. Streetlights go off, the sky goes gray, everything around me is gray. It's only me and like a couple of other cars on the road, but we all just kind of come to a slow stop. And I remember the car stopping, and thinking, this is weird. And I look over, and there's a man who looked like an Arab man next to me, just also stopped in his car. And then everything goes black. And the next thing I know, when whatever light goes back on, everything is gray again. I am upside down in my car, strapped with the seatbelt. So I'm literally upside down. The car's upside down. I'm strapped in upside down. Hands are on the steering wheel. And I look over to the man on my right, and he is in the same position as me, upside down, strapped in to his car upside down, but he's dead. Now, I see this. I remain fairly calm in my dream, and all of a sudden, I start seeing this, what looks like an explosion. Like it's just this orange, bright fire. And I remember thinking to myself in my dream, this is the end of the world, and I'm alone. And the moment I said that, everything exploded. Like the whole world exploded. I went with it. I watched the world end, and I woke up to what felt like fire, like in my bloodstream. Like my whole body just felt like it was engulfed by fire. I woke up instantly in the middle of the night and was like, what the fuck was that? And for the last, now we're over a year out from that dream. Since that day, I have been trying to figure out what that dream meant. I wasn't sure if it was me having, me watching whatever parallel universe I thought there was another Janan living in, like dying in that moment so I could be present in this life. The things that I was coming up with, the things that people were helping me try to figure out the purpose of this dream, we covered all of it. And it wasn't until maybe late December of 2023 that I opened up Instagram and I saw a video from Gaza, and it was a man that looked exactly like the man in my dream, blown to pieces in his car that was upside down. That I had a moment where I was like, I think that was some ancestral premonition type dream that was warning me that our world was ending. And I've talked about this a few times, but I don't think I've ever really gotten into it. But this whole concept of like the world ending, right now we're like experiencing what people think is like the end of the world, but I really think it's just like the end of the Western world, the end of the world of empires. Indigenous people all over this globe have experienced the end of their world many times over. Palestinians have been watching our world end over and over and over again every single day for 171 days. We see each life taken, stolen by colonial powers as the end of a universe. We are roughly 36,000 universes short in our community. We have watched 36,000 worlds end. And I usually have a point to all of the videos that I share, like some sort of call to action or like a purpose for sharing things. And I don't necessarily know that this one has a purpose. I think I'm just sharing a story with you. But I also think that that was my moment personally for me to trust that the concept of ancestral knowledge and channeling your ancestors is actually a thing. I think that dream back in February of 2023 was an ancestor coming through to warn me about what was about to happen to our world as Palestinians. I think it's why my ancestors and the land had a part to play in calling me back home in August of 2023, 2 months before all of this happened, because it was a moment to remind me of the world that I am fighting for. I don't believe in coincidences anymore. I never really did. I always really felt like there was a purpose for everything, or that like everything is divine timing. And then Western therapy, for as much as it's helped me through so much stuff in my life, it really kind of gets you to just like release that belief in divine timing, that everything has purpose and meaning, and that not everything is a sign, and that sometimes coincidences just happen. But I really, through this experience, the last 6 months, I have learned to revert back to trusting that belief in divine timing and in everything having a purpose and a reason, and that this timeline is not a mistake. So, long-winded story time to remind you, to encourage you to remember that we are all connected to everything in this universe, and we are connected to those who have passed on from this universe, and to remind you to be a vessel for these messages from, if you believe that what I just told you is a message from the ancestors, which I think I do. Be that vessel for them. Let them come through. Let them share their messages. Let them share their stories through you. It is the only way that we will be able to get through this monstrosity of individualism and empire and capitalism and revert the world back to indigenous power. Just allow yourself to be reconnected to everything.